How many hours have you spent going down YouTube rabbit holes trying to figure out how to work your email marketing system, or how to reconcile your Stripe payouts in QuickBooks, or how to create an audiogram for your podcast, only to realize that maybe this is something you should outsource? Making investments in your business is a big deal, and it's important that you're intentional about them. If you've ever wondered whether it's smarter to DIY or hire something out, this episode is going to give you some guidelines to help you decide. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of two, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. If you are running an online business, then I'm sure you've wrestled with the decision 100 times of, should I figure this out myself, or should I finally just pay somebody to help me? And I'm not just talking about branding or design here. I really mean the whole operation, from copywriting to building your website, bookkeeping, client onboarding, contract templates, email funnels. There is no shortage of things that you could DIY in your business. But just because you can do it all doesn't necessarily mean you should. In this episode, I'm breaking down a simple 5-part filter that you can use to make smart, sustainable decisions about where to DIY, where to invest, and where to meet in the middle. So, over the last almost decade in business, I have spent some time living on each side of this kind of debate. I have felt like I needed to DIY everything in my business and be really scrappy because I didn't have the budget to be outsourcing things. And I have also gotten to the point where I do have a good amount of money coming in, but my time is so limited that I just want to pay people to make all my problems go away. And I think both of those are the wrong answer, to be honest. I think that there are some things in your business you should DIY, and there are some things that you should hire a professional to do for you. And those are going to be different for every single one of us. But what I want to do today is talk you through kind of how I decide whether I'm going to DIY something or outsource it. And hopefully that will give you some good guidelines for helping you make those decisions in your business too. I also want to clarify that in this episode and with these guidelines, I'm talking about services to work on your business. So things like branding, web design, copywriting, photography, hiring a business attorney for a trademark, that type of thing. Not outsourcing in the way of hiring team members or subcontractors to do client work for your business. So quick kind of overview of the things that I consider whenever I'm deciding whether or not to DIY something in my business is going to be number 1, time, number 2, money, number 3, energy, number 4, skill set, and number 5, resources. So let's talk about number 1, time. You have heard me talk about on this podcast how I have 2 small children right now. My husband's in the military and I have no time for anything. So I think that you need to be constantly evaluating how much time you really do have to spend on your business, how much time client work takes up, how much time you're spending with your family, taking care of other responsibilities, taking care of yourself, and think about how much margin is there. And sometimes there's going to be a lot. And then sometimes, like in my case right now, there's going to be almost none. I would encourage you to really ask yourself, do I have the time realistically to do this? And not just to get it done, but to do it well without kind of pushing back other priorities, slowing down my business growth, putting myself on the back burner, burning myself out. I also want to add that the time consideration is not just about how many disposable hours you have this week, right? It's also about the time cost of spending time trying to figure out how to do this thing yourself. So in the 20 hours that it's going to take you to DIY your website, could you spend those 20 hours doing something else that would maybe bring you in more profit than what it would cost to outsource that website? Thinking about it in those terms, I think is really helpful too, because then you're making sure that you're considering like, what is your time really worth from a financial perspective? And then the last consideration as far as time goes is urgency. Are you on a deadline or some sort of a launch timeline that you need this done in the next 14 days, for example? Or do you have time to be a little flexible and take the extra time to learn how to DIY something and deal with maybe some setbacks that would happen with DIYing that would probably not happen if you were to hire it out? So if we're looking strictly at time as our deciding factor, I would say if you have the time, then try DIYing it. And if not, then hire it out. Our next consideration is going to be money. So Do you have the budget to invest in support for this? And am I going to get a return on that investment? I think it's all important for you to define what does a return mean for you. So for me, I'm not necessarily always looking for a financial return. For example, if I spend $500 a month on a VA, are they going to directly make me more than $500 a month? Probably not, but they are going to free up a ton of my time so that I can spend that time with my family, spend it working with clients, spend it networking to bring in new clients into our business. So it's important to consider what kind of an ROI are you going to get on your investment, and keep in mind that that might not always translate directly to dollars. I do think that there's truth to this statement that you have to spend money to make money. And I also think that you cannot just throw money at every problem and expect it to be fixed. Trust me, I have tried and it does not work. I also don't want you to feel pressured to hire if it's going to make you feel stressed out, or like you have to hustle extra hard in your business, or make you feel like really desperate to see results. That is not like energetically a place that I like to see people running a business from. So while you might not have an abundance of time, if spending the money to outsource something is going to really, really stress you out and put you in kind of fight or flight mode of I have to make this work, then maybe considering DIYing or finding like a half measure or extending your timeline that you're working with a little bit so that you can DIY might be the right choice for you. If you can afford it and if you want to hire it out, do it. I think that there are some things in your business, and we'll talk about this in a minute, that it's worth it to pay a pro for. But if you truly don't have the money, so for example, if hiring a photographer costs $5,000 and you just don't have $5,000 in your bank account, or you don't have $5,000 of like cash flow planned for the next several months, then you're going to have to set up a tripod and take some photos yourself, or use your iPhone, or ask your friend or spouse to do it for you. And that's fine for now. The third filter that I like to use when I'm deciding whether to DIY something or hire it out in my business is energy and kind of mental capacity. So running a business and working for yourself takes a lot out of you mentally and emotionally. And I think it's really important to consider honestly with yourself, do I have the energy to take on this task right now? If you do, then full steam ahead, go for it. If not, then I think that you are doing yourself and your clients and your team and your family all a disservice by spreading yourself too thin. Your energy is one of the most valuable resources that you have as a CEO, and nobody can give that to you, right? Like that is something that you need to protect and you need to cultivate, and that is only something that can be done by you. So if you have a family or other responsibilities, or you're running multiple businesses or anything like that, your energy is likely going to be your most limited resource. If you are already feeling stretched to your limit, but this thing that you're wanting to get done is a must do right now, then you probably should consider hiring it out. And on the flip side, if it's something that like really lights you up and actually energizes you and you want to learn about and you feel like you have the brain space, then I would encourage you to DIY it. Fourth is skill set. So we talk a lot in online business, or at least I do, about staying in your lane, stay in your zone of genius is what people say. And I am a proponent of that. But I think when we're talking about whether to DIY or hire something out in your business, not everything is going to be in your zone of genius. So I like to encourage you to stay within your zone of competence, we'll call it, right? My zone of genius is brand strategy and design and website design. But some copywriting tasks and social media management and Pinterest and SEO are all things that fall within my zone of competence. And since I don't really want to be spending money on those things in my business right now, I'm comfortable DIYing them. Something like writing contracts for my business, or doing my own taxes, or even like some really complex coding things for a website. Those are not within my zone of competence. So those are things that I need to hire out. I think that as business owners, we are kind of hardwired to be always learning new skills, and that's great. That's one of my favorite things about online business. I love, like I talked about before, going down a YouTube rabbit hole and teaching myself this new thing and then being like, oh my gosh, look what I can do now. That's great. And some things are learnable, and other things really do require professional knowledge to be able to do them competently. Like I mentioned before, anything to do with like legal stuff, getting your trademark done, any super technical coding, CPA things, Anything like that, you're probably better off trying to scrape together the pennies to pay somebody who's an expert to do it for you versus trying to do it yourself, messing it up, and then still having to go to an expert to have them fix the mistakes that you made. I also think that you should ask yourself, how important is the quality level in this particular task? I'm a big proponent, and I say this to my coaching clients all the time. Sometimes good enough is good enough. If you're brand new to business and you haven't had a single client yet, you should DIY your logo. You should not be spending money to have somebody do that for you. Something that is fine to get started with. But when we're talking about things like I mentioned before, for an easy example, doing your taxes, good enough is not good enough. It needs to be done correctly because you don't want to get audited by the IRS. Or writing a contract, good enough, not good enough. It needs to be like rock solid, because what happens whenever a situation with a client goes sideways and your good enough contract doesn't protect you. So I think if you have the skills or you can easily learn them, and the task that we're talking about doesn't require like a super, super high level of, we'll call it technical precision, then I would encourage you to at least try DIYing it. But if not, if it's not a skill that you feel like you're able to competently learn, or it's something that really does need to be done perfectly, then that's probably something you should hire. And lastly, number 5, resources. So here I mean things like tools, templates, support, memberships, courses, etc., that are going to help you bridge the gap between where you're at now with a particular skill set or a particular thing you're trying to accomplish and what you need in order to get that done. So this is where kind of that half step between hiring somebody to do it fully for you and fully doing it yourself with no support kind of comes in. You don't always need like a done for you several $1,000 expert. Sometimes you just need to compile the right resources to be able to do it. Sometimes you just need to compile the right resources to be able to teach yourself how to do it at a significantly cheaper price than fully hiring it out. And that can work really, really well in the right situations. For example, instead of hiring a professional brand designer for $5,000 to $10,000, you could buy a template. You could join a membership like the Six Figure Brand Society, where you can have guidance from a professional brand designer, but not the full price tag of having them do it for you. And that can really help you get like basically 80% of the way there at a significantly lower cost. So I think if you have access to the resources, then you're probably okay DIYing it. If there are no resources for the thing you're trying to get, or they're prohibitively expensive or what have you, then maybe you're better off just hiring somebody out fully. But I think that this is a good way to kind of like bridge that gap in between DIY and hiring it out until you get to a point where maybe you can hire it out if that's something that you're working towards. So I want to also talk here about kind of the hidden cost of free, right? Just because something doesn't cost you money doesn't mean that it doesn't cost you, right? So, maybe you didn't spend any money designing your website, but it took you 6 months. How much farther along could your business have been if you hadn't wasted 6 months doing that? The opportunity cost of spending hours and hours and hours doing something that really isn't in your wheelhouse. So 1, is going to take you way longer than it would take to hire out. 2, it's not going to be done as well. And 3, you could have spent that time doing something else that actually does move the needle in your business, is something that you need to keep in mind when you're deciding which route to go for whatever task in your business that we're talking about. More times than I want to admit, have said, I can do it myself, I can do it myself, I can do it myself. And I can't actually do it myself, which either holds me back and I don't ever even start the thing because I feel intimidated by it, or I try to do it myself and then I'm like unhappy with the result because I wasn't really the right person for the job. So sort of to summarize, I would say it makes sense to DIY something in your business if you're validating a new offer and you're not really ready to go all in yet. If you are not bringing in a ton of income right now, if you have the tools, templates, training, resources, energy to do it well enough, and if you're genuinely excited to learn kind of the process behind doing the thing and understanding what really goes into it. On the flip side, I would suggest hiring a pro if it's something that's going to hold you up, either by taking up a lot of time, by like draining your energy, what have you. If you have tried it a few times and you still feel like you're banging your head against the wall, if it is something super, super, super important and like high stakes, in your business, and if you need somebody who can kind of bring some strategy versus just execution and doing. I also think that there is a middle ground for many of these things. Several episodes ago, I had my friend Sam of Nomad Copy Agency on the podcast. She runs a membership where she helps people DIY their copy. I have the Six Figure Brand Society where I support people in DIYing their brand. So you are doing it yourself, but you're doing it yourself with support. And I think that can be a really nice middle ground to kind of help you get to that next step in your business where then you are ready to fully invest in these things. So kind of I want to do it myself, but I don't want to do it alone. So all of this to say, if you want to outsource everything that you can in your business, that's okay. That doesn't make you lazy or not the expert or not willing to put in the work. And conversely, if you really want to get scrappy and DIY everything you can, that doesn't mean that you're like broke and duct taping your business together. There are lots of ways to build a business and they're all valid. They all work. I have seen them all work for myself, for my friends, for my clients. I think the important part here is to just make smart decisions about when to invest, when to do things yourself, and really know your priorities. Like I said at the very beginning of this episode, the answer here is going to be different for everybody. And knowing kind of what's most important to you, what your goals are, what your strengths and your weaknesses are is really going to be the key here. I would encourage you to kind of pause before you decide whether or not to DIY something and look at what is on your plate already. Are there things you could let go of to make space for something that you want to DIY? Is there things that you've been banging your head against a wall trying to figure out yourself and it's just not working for you and maybe you need to outsource that? And maybe there's things that you're outsourcing that you don't necessarily need to be just because someone told you to. And before we go, I also want to mention that if design is something that you're deciding between DIYing or hiring out, I do have a free quiz that you can take to help you decide. So I will link that in the show notes. But there's no right answer here. You need to figure out what works best for yourself and what your kind of rules are when it comes to deciding whether to DIY or whether to outsource. So I hope that hearing how I do that in my business can kind of help you to figure out what those priorities are and what those rules are in your own business. Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.